сих пор иногда, когда я закрываю глаза, я до сих пор вижу эту схватку. Катывается эхо по моей стране. Если я могу измениться, и ты можешь измениться. Когда любой может измениться. Когда я увидел, как Политбюро встает поприветствовать американца на этой нашей земле, я понял, что Советский Союз развалится.
My name is Mohammed Sheikh, and I'm a professional skateboarder.
Wait.
What?
Can't see you.
What do you mean you can't see me?
You're too short.
Am I in the frame?
No, barely.
Wait, I got it. Can you see me now?
Yes, better.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. This is my first time on camera. I'm really nervous.
Okay, relax. Okay, so can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Mohammed Sheikh. I'm a 10th grader that goes to Y High. I live in Canton, Michigan, and I'm a professional skateboarder.
Awesome. So how long have you been skating now?
I've been skating, oh gosh, it's a long time. I'd say maybe 3 days now.
Can you explain to us what your project was about?
Oh, my project. Well, my project was to make an electric skateboard, but not just any electric skateboard. It was to use as little resources as possible.
Okay, describe to us the global context that you decided to use.
The global context I decided to use was scientific and technical innovation.
So how did you do it? How in the world did you end up making an electric skateboard?
Well, actually that's a long story. I know how to explain it to you. Okay, so we're gonna start it off with the project and global context. Here's where I tell you what the global context is, why I chose the project, kind of what the project is about. Investigation. This is where I research what I need to do and how I'm going to do it. Planning. Here's where I use my research to make plans for myself to build the electric skateboard. Taking action. This is where I actually take action, hence the name. I use all my plans and my investigation to build the electric skateboard. Next is reflection, where I reflect on how I built the skateboard, how it was done, just stuff like that. And we'll end it off with the conclusion, what the skateboard looks like, what I think of it, and my proud. So the investigation process, this is where I research everything of how to do it, how I'm going to do it. I had to break it down into a few parts since it was so large. I had to research the price of everything and where I would get it, but then I also had to research how I was going to put it together, where I would get the engine, how I'm going to attach it to the skateboard and everything. Well, with this research, I forgot the fact that a skateboard is a lean to turn device, meaning if you want to turn left, you lean to the left. If you want to turn right, you lean to the right. Because it's a lean to turn device, it needs to have two front wheels in the front. It needs to have two front wheels. Back wheels, it does not matter. So this really threw a wrench into my plan because originally I was planning on just cutting the handlebars off of a scooter and calling it a day, but now I had to attach two front wheels. So I ended up adding the parts of an electric scooter to a skateboard and calling it an electric skateboard. The limitations I experienced were that I was not able to use many resources, so I couldn't just buy a new skateboard, I couldn't just buy a new scooter, can't buy new wires, so I had to do a lot of DIY tasks like cutting the scooter and then screwing it onto the skateboard. So now I was at the planning process. In my opinion, this is the most important because you take all the research and then create a plan for yourself, which is going to affect you in the future. Because of this, I think I did plan very effectively because I built a prototype, which was not good at all, but it did help me see all the problems which I would face in the future. What I would do differently, I would be way more detailed in my steps, because in the final product I ended up having loose screws and like wires would come apart. But if I had planned this beforehand and had been more safe, then I don't think I would have faced this problem. That problem was solved in the end, but I think it would have been stronger if I had done this before. The taking action phase was the easiest and the fastest phase. This is because I had already investigated and planned everything out. So a typical day in MYP, what I would do, I would go into class, fill out my journals, my daily agenda, and then I would continue to do my research. I was not able to build a skateboard at school because power tools were needed for it, so I had to do it at home. So because of that, I did it mostly at home. It only took me one weekend, maybe 5 hours. This is because I had already planned everything out, so I knew exactly what to do. That's how I effectively used my time. I spent most of it researching and then just spent a small amount of time actually doing the action, which really helped me. I would recommend that. And the environment necessary to work on this task, I actually did in my basement. I had the rest of my family were just upstairs, so it was quiet. I was able to work and do it fast without any distractions, so I was able to do it in a really fast amount of time. The reflection process, I could really see myself. So the IB learner profiles that I used were risk taker, thinker, and reflective. Risk taker because I could have done an easier project, but instead I chose to make an electric skateboard, which was fun, but you know, it was a lot of work. Thinker because I had to research and then find out how to make the skateboard and then solve the problems that I had about it. And reflective because I had to look back on the problems and solve them and see how I was going to do that. My journals were textual, video, and photographic, so I thought this was an effective format because I was able to look back on what I had done previously and how I could fix that, and I could really see my train of thought, and that was very effective for me. Yes, I do think this project was successful because I was able to build an electric skateboard for only $130, which is really cheap because usually these electric skateboards are sold for $1,000, maybe even $6,000, so $130 is nothing. So now the actual process of actually building it and the steps that I took to build it. Like I said before, it only costs $130, so it's fairly cheap. After extensive research and investigation and planning out my steps, I then went into my basement and my skateboard, a drill bits, scooter, saw, and lots and lots of screws, multiple tools, and I got to work. This was on a Saturday around 10 a.m. and the first thing I did was try to figure out how I was going to attach the scooter to the skateboard itself. I had planned for this, however, doing it in real life is much more different because I did not have the precise measurements. That is one thing that I would change if I were to do this project again, just being more accurate and precise when doing the measurements. However, when I was sawing the scooter, I tried to saw it so I would not include the front tire area, but instead the back tire area. But before any of that, I had to take the scooter apart. This was a very complicated process because there were many screws everywhere and it was not meant to be taken apart. Because of that, I had to take pictures every time I took something apart so that I would be able to put it back together when needed. This was done by just taking pictures and labeling them and putting their screws with the parts that they were taken off with. After this process, I cut the scooter in half. The process, I had my little sister help me. This took about 15 minutes. This took me about 15 minutes to do. We wore gloves and there was actually a lot of friction, so it got hot, so we laid towels on the ground. After separating the two pieces, we let it cool down. I then drilled holes onto the skateboard for where I wanted to connect it. This was also very complicated because I had to drill holes through the scooter and then through the skateboard and then find nuts and bolts that would work on the skateboard itself. It took me about 10 minutes to do that, but once I did, it was all fine. At this point, I now have a skateboard with the scooter's wheels and the motor attached to it. But another problem was that the battery pack, which you can see at the bottom of the skateboard, is actually fairly heavy and there's not much room for it to be placed. So I placed it on the bottom and I had to add lots and lots of screws for it to stay there. That took me about 2 hours to figure everything out, but now at this point everything is figured out. The electric skateboard works perfectly, but then I had one more problem. When I would ride it, the skateboard's battery pack would hit up against the ground and cause friction and sparks to fly. Because of this, I had to then increase the height of the skateboard and wheels. So this was done by ordering wheels off Amazon. Once I ordered the wheels, the height was just high enough so that I could lean and turn and the skateboard would not hit up against the ground. Now pretty much the skateboard was completely done. Well, I had been riding it for 2 weeks now, and screws were coming loose. People would pull out the wires, and the wire would come loose, and I would have to open up everything and fix it again. So I spent another day trying to fix up all the screws, making them stronger, adding epoxy, adding bolts, nuts to places, and then adding tape and electrical tape to the wires so that they were stronger. This was really worth it because I've been riding it for a while now since then, and it has not broken. I would say I was fairly successful, and I'm very happy with what I have right now. The scooter can go up to 10 to 12 miles. Yes, it depends on the weight of the weight of the rider and everything. But after a 12-hour charge, it can ride for 10 to 12. It can ride for after a 12-hour charge, the skateboard can go for 40 minutes at speeds of 12 to 15 miles an hour. The 12 to 15 miles an hour is not a lot, but for a skateboard and making an electric skateboard where the person does not have to push the skateboard themselves, it's actually very good. The skateboard that I use is actually a longboard, meaning that it has more space on the board itself for the rider to ride it. And longboard wheels are different from skateboard wheels because they are made to travel longer distances, and they do go longer, which is why I also chose longboard wheels. Besides that, I think everything else was fine. The skateboard is still intact and I'm still using it. It is very nice actually. And I have let other users ride it and they've liked it as well. If I were to make this skateboard again, like I said, I would be more precise with the measurements. I would be more careful with adding all the screws and everything. I would plan everything much more in advance. But other than that, I thought it was fine. Okay, so to conclude everything, I gained a lot from this project. I gained a lot of knowledge on motors, engines, and batteries, just how they work, how just everything does. And I would really recommend this project to other people interested. Although it may take a lot of work and a lot of time, it's really fun, it's really worth it. Actually, you know what, it's getting late, it's past my curfew, I'm gonna go.
This was very difficult for the American public to see.
I've only cried twice because of a sporting event. When Happy Gilmore accidentally killed Chubbs, and then
How do you slow him down?
How do you, the same way you slow me down. You can't.
You knew right away, didn't you, that this kid was going to be special?
Yeah. No, I just thought he was special. Thought he was a special kid. I'm very good at noticing talent, and I thought he was special then, and obviously he is now still.